Chapter 1, Part 2. The four of them went out together Saturday morning, seatbelted into their spotless new station wagon. Joanna and Walter in sunglasses, talking of stores and shopping, and Pete and Kim power-switching their windows down and up and down and up till Walter told them to stop it. The day was vivid and gem-edged, a signal of autumn. They drove to Stepford Centre, white-frame colonial shopfronts, postcard pretty, for discount slip hardware and pharmaceuticals, then south on Route 9 to a large new shopping mall, discount slip shoes for Pete and Kim, what a wait, and a no-discount jungle gym, then east on Eastbridge Road to a McDonald's, Big Macs, chocolate shakes, and a little further east for antiques, an octagonal end table, no documents, and then north, south, east, west, all over Stepford. Anvil Road, Cold Creek Road, Honeycut, Beavertail, Burgess Ridge. To show Pete and Kim, Joanna and Walter had seen it all house hunting, their new school, and the schools they would go to later on. The you'd never guess what it is from the outside, non-polluting incinerator plant, and the picnic grounds where a community pool was under construction. Joanna sang Good Morning Sunshine at Pete's request, and they all did McNamara's band, with each one imitating a different instrument in the final part. And Kim threw up, but with enough warning for Walter to pull over and stop and get her unbuckled and out of the station wagon in time, thank God. That quieted things down. They drove back through Stepford Centre, slowly, because Pete said that he might throw up too. Walter pointed out the white frame library and the Historical Society's 200-year-old white frame cottage. Kim, looking upward through her window, lifted a sucked thin lifesaver from her tongue and said, "What's that big one?" "That's the Men's Association house," Walter said. Pete leaned to his seatbelt's limit and ducked and looked. Is that where you're going tonight?" he asked. "That's right," Walter said. "How do you get to it?" "There's a driveway further up the hill." They had come up behind a truck with a man in khaki standing in its open back, his arms stretched to its sides. He had brown hair and a long, lean face and wore eyeglasses. That's Gary Claybrook, isn't it?" Joanna said. Walter pressed a fleeting horn beep and waved his arm out of the window. Their across-the-street neighbour bent to look at them, then smiled and waved and caught hold of the truck. Joanna smiled and waved. Kim yelled, "Hello, Mr. Claybrook," and Pete yelled, "Where's Jeremy?" "He can't hear you," Joanna said. "Oh, I wish I could ride a truck that way," Pete said, and Kim said, me too. The truck was creeping and grinding, fighting against the steep, left-curving upgrade. Gary Claybrook smiled self-consciously at them. The truck was half filled with small cartons. "What's he doing, moonlighting?" Joanna asked. "Not if he makes as much as Ted says he does," Walter said. "Oh? What's moonlighting?" Pete asked. The truck's brake lights flashed. It stopped, its left turn signal winking. Joanna explained what moonlighting was. The car shot down the hill, and the truck began moving across the left lane. Is that the driveway?" Pete asked, and Walter nodded and said, "Yep, that's it." Kim switched her window farther down, shouting, "Hello, Mr. Claybrook." He waved as they drove past him. Pete sprung his seatbelt buckle and jumped around onto his knees. "Can I go there sometime?" he asked, looking out the back. "Sorry," Walter said. "No kids allowed." "Boy, they got a great big fence," Pete said. "Like in Hogan's Heroes." "To keep women out," Joanna said, looking ahead, a hand to the rim of her sunglasses. Walter smiled. "Really?" Pete asked. "Is that what it's for?" "Pete took his belt off," Kim said. "Pete," Joanna said. They drove up Norwood Road, then west on Winter Hill Drive. As a matter of principle, she wasn't going to do any housework. Not that there wasn't plenty to do, God knows, and some that she actually wanted to do, like getting the living room bookshelves squared away. But not tonight, no sir, it could darn well wait. She wasn't Carol Van Sant, and she wasn't Mary Ann Stavros pushing a vacuum cleaner past a downstairs window when she went below a peat shade. No, sir. Walter was at the Men's Association, fine. He had to go there to join, and he'd have to go there once or twice a week to get it changed. But she wasn't going to do housework while he was there, at least not this first time, any more than he was going to do it when she was out somewhere, which she was going to be on the next clear moonlit night, down in the centre getting some time exposures of those colonial shop fronts. The hardware store's irregular panes would wobble the moon's reflection, maybe interestingly. So once Pete and Kim were sound asleep, she went down to the cellar and did some measuring and planning in the storage room that was going to be her dark room. And then she went back up, checked Pete and Kim, and made herself a vodka and tonic and took it into the den. She put the radio on to some schmaltzy but nice Richard Rogersy stuff, moved Walter's contracts and things carefully from the centre of the desk, and got out her magnifier and red pencil and the contact sheets of her quick before I leave the city pictures. Most of them were a waste of film, as she'd suspected when taking them. She was never any good when she was rushing, but she found one that really excited her. A shot of a well-dressed young black man with an attaché case glaring venomously at an empty cab that had just passed him. If his expression enlarged well, and if she darkened the background to bring up the blurred cab, it could be an arresting picture, one she was sure the agency would be willing to handle. There were plenty of markets, pictures dramatizing racial tensions. She red-penciled an asterisk beside the print and went on looking for others that were good, or at least part good, but croppable. She remembered her vodka and tonic and sipped it. At 11:15, she was tired, so she put her things away in her side of the desk, put Walter's things back where they had been, turned the radio off and brought her glass into the kitchen and rinsed it. She checked the doors, turned the lights off except the one in the entrance hall, and went upstairs. Kim's elephant was on the floor. She picked it up and tucked it under the blanket beside the pillow, then pulled the blanket up onto Kim's shoulders and fondled her ringlets very lightly. Pete was on his back with his mouth open, exactly as he had been when she had checked before. She waited until she saw his chest move, then opened his door wider, switched the hall light off, and went into her and Walter's room. She undressed, braided her hair, showered, rubbed in face cream, brushed her teeth, and got into bed. 12:20. She turned the lamp off. Lying on her back, she swung out her right leg and arm. She missed Walter beside her, but the expanse of cool sheet smoothness was pleasant. How many times had she gone to bed alone since they were married? Not many. The nights he'd been out of town on Marburg Don Levy business, the times she'd been in the hospital with Pete and Kim, the night of the power failure when she'd gone home for Uncle Bert's funeral, maybe 20 or 25 times in all, in the 10 years and a little more. It wasn't a bad feeling. By God, it made her feel like Joanna Ingalls again. Remember her? She wondered if Walter was getting bombed. That was liquor on that truck that Gary Claybrook had been riding in, or had the cartons been too small for liquor? But Walter had gone in Vic Stavros's car, so let him get bombed. Not that he really was likely to, he hardly ever did. What if Vic Stavros got bombed? The sharp curves on Norwood Road. Oh, nuts. Why worry? The bed was shaking. She lay in the dark, seeing the darker side of the open bathroom door and the glint of the dresser's handles, and the bed kept shaking her in a slow, steady rhythm, each shake accompanied by a faint spring squeak again and again and again. It was Walter who was shaking. He had a fever. Or the DTs? She spun around and leaned to him on one arm, staring, reaching to find his brow. His eye whites looked at her and turned instantly away. All of him turned from her, and the imprinting of the blanket at his groin was gone as she saw it, replaced by the shape of his hip. The bed became still. Had he been masturbating? She didn't know what to say. She sat up. I thought you had the DTs, she said. Or fever. He lay still. I didn't want to wake you, he said. It's after 2. She sat there and caught her breath. He stayed on his side, not saying anything. She looked at the room, its windows and furniture dim in the glow from the nightlight in Pete and Kim's bathroom. She fixed her braid down straight and rubbed her hand on her midriff. You could have, she said, woke me. I wouldn't have minded. He didn't say anything. Gee whiz, you don't have to do that, she said. I just didn't want to wake you, he said. You were sound asleep. Well, next time wake me. He came over onto his back. No tent. Did you? She asked. No, he said. Oh, she said. Well, and smiled at him. Now I'm up. She lay down beside him, turning to him and held her arm out over him, and he turned to her and they embraced and kissed. He tasted of scotch. I mean, consideration is fine, she said in his ear, but Jesus. It turned out to be one of their best times ever, for her at least. Wow, she said, coming back from the bathroom. I'm still weak. He smiled at her, sitting in bed and smoking. She got in with him and settled herself comfortably under his arm, drawing his hand down onto her breast. What did they do? She said. Show you dirty movies or something? He smiled. No such luck, he said. He put his cigarette by her lips and she took a puff of it. They took $8.50 from me in poker, he said, and they chewed my ear off about the zoning board's evil intentions, RE Eastbridge Road. I was afraid you were getting bombed. Me? 2 scotches. They're not heavy drinkers. What did you do? She told him and about her hopes for the picture of the black man. He told her about some of the men he had met. The paediatrician, the Van Sants and the Claybrooks had recommended, the magazine illustrator who was Stepford's major celebrity, 2 other lawyers, a psychiatrist, the police chief, the manager of the Centre Market. The psychiatrist should be in favour of letting women in, she said. He is, Walter said, and so is Dr. Very. I didn't sound out any of the others. I didn't want to come on as too much of an activist the first time there. When are you going again? She asked, and was suddenly afraid. Why? That he would say tomorrow. I don't know, he said. Listen, I'm not going to make it a way of life the way Ted and Vic do. I'll go in a week or so, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of provincial, really. She smiled and snuggled closer to him. She was about a third of the way down the stairs, going by footfeel, holding the damn laundry basket to her face because of the damn banister, when, wouldn't you know it, the double damn phone rang. She couldn't put the basket down, it would fall, and there wasn't enough room to turn around with it and go back up, so she kept going slowly down, foot-feeling and thinking, okay, to the phone's answer me this instant ringing. She made it to the bottom, put the basket down and stalked to the den desk. Hello? She said, the way she felt, with no put-on graciousness.
Hi, is this Joanna Eberhardt?
The voice was loud, happy, raspy, Peggy Clavenger-ish, but Peggy Clavenger had been with Paris Match the last she'd heard, and wouldn't even know she was married, let alone where she was living. Yes? She said. Who's this?
We haven't been formally introduced.
The no, not Peggy Clavenger voice said.
But I'm going to do it right now. Bobbie, I'd like you to meet Joanna Eberhardt. Joanna, I'd like you to meet Bobbie Markowe. That's Kowe. Bobbie has been living here in the Heights County for 5 weeks now, and she'd like very much to know an avid shutterbug with a keen interest in politics and the women's lib movement. That's you, Joanna, according to what it says here in the Stepford Chronicle, or Chronic Ill, depending on your journalistic standards. If they conveyed an accurate impression of you, are you really not deeply concerned about whether pink soap pads are better than blue ones or vice versa? Given complete freedom of choice, would you just as soon not squeeze the charming hello
Are you still there, Joanna? Hello? Hello, Joanna said. Yes, I'm here, and how I'm here. Hello, son of a gun, it pays to advertise. What a pleasure to see a messy kitchen, Bobbie said. Doesn't quite come up to mine. You know, you don't have the little peanut butter handprints on the cabinets, but it's good. It's very good. Congratulations. I can show you some dull, dingy bathrooms if you'd like, Joanna said. Thanks, I'll just take the coffee. Is instant okay? You mean there's something else? She was short and heavy-bottomed, in a blue Snoopy sweatshirt and jeans and sandals. Her mouth was big, with unusually white teeth, and she had blue take-in-everything eyes and short, dark, tufty hair, and small hands and dirty toes, and a husband named Dave who was a stock analyst, and 3 sons, 10, 8, and 6, and an old English sheepdog and a corgi. She looked a bit younger than Joanna, 32 or 3. She drank 2 cups of coffee and ate a ring-ding and told Joanna about the women of Fox Hollow Lane. I'm beginning to think there's a nationwide contest I haven't heard about, she said, tonguing her chocolated fingertips. $1 million. And Paul Newman for the cleanest house by next Christmas. I mean it. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Wax, wax, wax. It's the same around here, Joanna said. Even at night. And the men all that men's association, Bobbie cried. They talked about it, the antiquated sexist unfairness of it, the real injustice in a town with no women's organisation, not even a league of women voters. Believe me, I've combed this place, Bobbie said. There's the garden club and a few old Betty church groups for which I'm not eligible anyway. Markowe is Upward Mobile for Markowitz, and there's the very non-sexist Historical Society. Drop in and say hello to them, corpses in lifelike positions. Dave was in the Men's Association, and like Walter, thought it could be changed from within. But Bobbie knew better. You'll see, we'll have to chain ourselves to the fence before we get any action. How about that fence? You think that they were refining opium? They talked about the possibility of having a get-together with some of their neighbours, a rap session to wake them to the more active role they could play in the town's life, but they agreed that the women they had met seemed unlikely to welcome even so small a step toward liberation. They talked about the National Organisation for Women, to which they both belonged, and about Joanna's photography. Oh, my God, these are great, Bobbie said, looking at the 4 mounted enlargements Joanna had hung in the den. They're terrific. Joanna thanked her. Avid shutterbug. I thought that meant Polaroids of the kids. These are marvelous. Now that Kim's in kindergarten, I'm really going to get to work, Joanna said. She walked Bobbie to her car. Damn it, no, Bobbie said. We ought to try at least. Let's talk to these housefrows. There must be some of them who resent the situation a little. What do you say? Wouldn't it be great if we could get a group together? Maybe even a now chapter eventually, and give that men's association a good shaking up. Dave and Walter are kidding themselves. It's not going to change unless it's forced to change. Fat cat organizations never do. What'd you say, Joanna? Let's ask around. Joanna nodded. We should, she said. They can't all be as content as they seem.